Hello and welcome to the studio. I'm going to do a pair of videos on the subject of drawing glass using pastel. The first one will be exploring a tonal range of light and dark to describe the shape, the form, the reflectivity of glass. And the second one will be in colour, and I'll explore the way glass picks up the colour of the objects that are surrounding it. So here's my setup. At the moment it's the coloured paper that I've put around it for the second video. But in this first one, there we are, I shall just look at that tonal range, just using black, white and greys. I've picked a couple of greys, a black and a white, and I think I'll be able to get all the tones that I need from these shades of grey. Just unpeeling the cover of this one. Now I'm going to consider a couple of different ways of approaching drawing this shape, and one to draw freehand and the other to draw by transfer. So I'll draw the freehand one first, and I think it would be a good idea, if you're going to do your drawing of a glass or a jar freehand, to do some ellipses for practice. So for this I'm just going to use a piece of sugar paper out of an old scrapbook. So I'm not using my more expensive pastel paper. So just to loosen up, I'm going to make a page of ellipses, having a look at the ellipse of the top of the glass and the ellipse of the base as well, which will be slightly deeper in relation to the width because it's lower down, further away from my eye level, which is sort of up here or higher. So we'll just loosen up, make a few really shallow ellipses and a few deeper ones, a few circles, and all of these movements come, as you may have practiced in the past, they come from the ball and socket joint, not from my fingers or my wrist. So this, I find, is the easiest way to make an ellipse. And I'm sort of only pressing on quite lightly and making a number of ellipses. Rather than trying to get it right the first time, I'm sort of drawing in the air first and then very lightly pressing down onto the paper. Okay, so the glass is going to be something like that. Now, in order to line up the foot ring of the glass underneath, you could sort of make an attempt to draw it freehand, but I'm not sure whether it falls in line below the top of the glass. So what I would do would be to measure halfway, put a mark in and drop a plumb line down. Now that might be easier to do by measuring from the side with a ruler if you want to. Might even find you need to measure across there with the ruler. Let's try it and see. How close did I get to halfway? So I'm looking at 11.5. So I've made my mark at just to the left of 6 centimetres, which is approximately right, near enough I would say. Perhaps a tad further to the left. Drop a plumb line down, and then the sides of my glass taper slightly. I'm just going to aim for this left hand side at the moment, taking curves in again, trying to work with my body to make the marks. So that curve comes quite nicely from this joint of my wrist. There's some of the stem here. I'm just drawing to one side of halfway. I'll show you why in a minute. Being right-handed, I find this side easier to draw. And then starting my ellipse for the base, and I'm just checking with with what I can see in front of me all the time. So I'm fairly happy with that. Then I need to draw this side to match that side, and this is where I find it easier to turn the drawing upside down. And instead of now looking at the subject, I'm going to look at the shapes on this side and even take measurements and transfer the measurement across, put a little mark in. Let's take a measurement there where that change of direction occurs. Transfer that mark to there. And then if I join up those 2 points, it's going to make my glass symmetrical. Let's do the same with that part of the stem. There we are. And try and copy this curve over to there. And even take the movement through. Okay, and then I found the ellipse was, let me just check by closing one eye. Does the base actually sticks out a little bit further than the rim of the glass. So if I'm going parallel with the side, that's where approximately the base is going to come out to. And that's 6 centimetres. I'll make a mark over there, and then I can sweep round and complete my ellipse. Now then, let's just confirm some of these marks I made earlier. Turn the drawing over, see if that's reasonably straight. That's not too bad for a freehand drawing. All I'd need to add is and I'm just going to go from my photograph that I took so that we're looking at things from the same angle. I need to add the line where the base intersects the wall there. Not quite straight. There we are. It's slightly at a slight angle, isn't it? And then all that base that I can see through the glass is this really interesting distorted shape. And as long as I'm true to that, I'm going to create a drawing that looks like a glass. Anyway, plenty of work yet to do, and let's just talk, before I do any more to this, about the transfer method. So what you see me doing here is applying oil pastel to the back of my photograph. And I'm just going to check with the light shining through the paper that I'm going in all the right places so that I can transfer the whole image down to my drawing paper. So when I took my photograph and edited it, I composed it so that it falls within a pleasing section of the paper. If you divide the rectangle into thirds this way, 1/3 goes through the middle of the glass. So we go 1, 2, 3. And then this strong line is also approximately on 1/3 of the height of the composition. So drawing this by transfer method means that all that work that I did on composing the image can be dealt with in one procedure. So I'll position it on top of the paper. This is another piece of sugar paper that I'm practicing on. And using a nice pointed hard pencil, I can go over as much or as little of the image as I want to. I could just draw the two ellipses, this base curve and the stem perhaps, and put a few marks in for where the edge of the base that it's sitting on and the wall intersect. Or I could trace down all the intricate shapes in the reflection as well. It's entirely up to you how much or how little you transfer down. So a nice sharp pencil, and this is going to be easier if I hold the board, and then I can keep turning it round so that I'm making shapes in the way that my hand wants to move. It's interesting to notice while I'm doing this, where are the points that the tones of the glass disappear against the tones of the background, and yet our brains sort of fill in the missing bits, the gaps, and we accept that there is a complete shape there, even though we can't actually see the whole of the shape. So there's an area here where the side of the glass is the same tone as the background, more or less, or so it appears in this photograph. When I look at the subject now, I can just see an edge here, but it's a very slight shift between the tone of the background and the tone of the glass. However, of course, I can draw it in with a line and then decide whether to have a line round the edge in my drawing or whether to allow it to be a lost edge. I'm actually putting in some of the shapes of the distorted reflections and refraction that I can see in the where the stem joins the base there. I think I might have missed out some pastel at that point. No worries. Go back. Where's it missing? Just here. I've put that pastel in slightly in the wrong place. Try again. If you want to develop your observational skills and your freehand drawing skills, take your time over doing a freehand drawing. But if the thing that you're most interested in is laying pastel down in different shades and exploring the way the material behaves and how you can depict the shininess of glass, and you don't really want to spend all that time getting the drawing right, then by all means use this tracing method, well, transferring method. Just saves a bit of time. And is it cheating? I hear you cry. Well, it's cheating if you think it is, but in my view, as long as you, if anybody asks, you tell them the truth, that you transferred it by a tracing method, then in my view it's not cheating. It's only cheating if you tell a lie and say, no, it's all done freehand. I've missed a bit off there again, but I think I could probably see enough. I think making the transfer itself is an interesting and creative thing to do, because while you're doing it, you'll be observing shapes and bright areas and dark areas and starting to make decisions about how you will use different tones of grey to depict these reflected and refracted shapes. I can't see in the photograph so well the reflections on the inside of the glass and on the outside, so I think it is quite important either to have a view of the photograph on your tablet or iPad, or to have the object in front of you. It depends if you're working from an object or from a photograph, but make sure you've got the best possible photograph available to work from. It's the brightness of the reflections that really make the drawing successful. When you're depicting glass. I think I will try and get that side in. It's just bothering me a little bit. There we are. I really like this bit where the rim of the glass, you can see the thickness of it here, but then with foreshortening it becomes narrower here and even narrower there as the rim of the glass forms into an ellipse. There's a lovely sense of tension about that shape. The difference between the thickness here and the thinness there and there, I think is a very energetic, has a very energetic effect, I think. I'm going to enjoy doing that. An important part, I think, of this composition is the shadow as well. This shadow on the wall where the light is refracted through the glass. It's going to be very interesting to work with these pastels, create all the tones, and that's another reason why I've done this quite large, sort of larger than sight size, because if I was, sight size is when you draw something the same size as you see it, so if I take a measurement of that glass on my paper it would be about that size, so yeah, about that size. which would be much too small to draw all this fiddly detail with these blunt sticks. So that's why I've drawn it a lot bigger, both in the transfer and in the freehand drawings, even bigger in the freehand drawing. And of course you've noticed, I suppose, that this is positioned differently because it was just an exercise to show you some of these tricks in freehand drawing. I just bunged the glass on the middle of the page, and it's not pleasingly composed at all. It's just a shape in the middle of the page, whereas with the more composed version it's going to make a prettier picture.